So I'll officially open our membership token committee meeting. Just to say, if you have any issues with the recording now or later on, send an email to jp@lawfidao.com and we can edit the recording. A rough agenda today is to go through any initial reactions to the proposed membership token model in the white paper. We might deal with that in the second item. But first, just following off Roy and Ridley's comments in the community call this morning, Greg, as the person with tentacles into everything NFTs and artists and the network that we need to bring in to pull off this token, the vector-based images was something that really sparked my attention. So did you have any thoughts of who might be able to help us with this, or if it's something that we can outsource for every person that submits or self-attests to their attributes, that they have a go at doing a vector-based image to describe it?
My thoughts would be anytime there's even a lot of NFT artists, like digital artists, always talk about that fan art sort of submission style is always makes you feel warm and fuzzy, but it often causes more headaches than what it's sort of worth. So I don't know whether that is necessarily the way. My question would probably be more around do you want someone to be potentially donating their time and services for this as part of the greater good, or is it more of a paid gig? Because I think that's probably going to steer the decision a little bit more, just being upfront.
I think that the idea is, if we pull this off well enough, or even our version 1 or our version 2, that it's attempting to be the minimum standard or the best practice standard. So those set of vector-based images, whatever it is that we use to represent lawyers, those from a First Nations cultural heritage, those are all things, hopefully, that become standardized and everybody recognizes them as symbols. So if it's, I think IP licensing will be front and center here, even if there is no payment or no, the artwork is provided on a perpetual royalty-free basis. There can still be an upfront payment to the artist or artists that provide those images, and the licensing, I think it could be a great opportunity for us to experiment with those Can't Be Evil licenses that were released through the lead of A16Z. So that's a good jumping point. And then in terms of allocation of funds, it probably will be a process of collecting quotes or assessing sentiment on how much time it's going to take versus a small job. Perhaps they're willing to contribute time, but more substantial, we'll have to quote and get approval and raise capital.
Yeah, for sure. So I was on the call all of it this morning, but I was walking for the first 20 minutes. I had my camera off. I probably missed about 5 minutes, but I remember hearing you, or maybe even Roy, speak to sort of discussing around, is this going to be the same sort of artwork for everyone, or are these going to be individual pieces? And I think Roy might have been pointing out that it might be a little bit more challenging to have them all individually. Was that sort of the gist that I picked up?
Yeah, much more complex, much more challenging. And so we want to get to some sense of representative membership and then therefore democracy. And the categories in the white paper are sort of at least 25 categories already. So that's at least 25 images. And probably what you raise is, what is the process to take submissions for more categories and more images?
Yeah.
Arturo, what do you think?
We're going through a process through the OzDeFi community to, as a test, launch an NFT project where buyers of these NFTs effectively get a hoodie with the image there.
And now, the NFTs are the transferable, sort of collectible.
Yeah, correct.
NFTs, yeah,
correct.
Not a membership token.
No, and look, honestly, we have zero legal structure around it. It's basically just a toy. It's a game, right, for us. Now, that being said, we've gone through a few iterations in terms of the artwork, and we've been working with someone within the community. And what we've learned is that going down a 3D route is much more difficult in many ways than having standard 2D images. And the nice thing with 2D images, apart from it being simpler to create in many scenarios, is that you can actually pass them through algorithms where you basically define multiple traits, and then the algorithms combine these traits in the images. So it becomes very easy for you to create, 1,000 different images with these traits together. And like, for example, you look at the Bored Apes NFT, it's about defining the traits and defining how many instances this trait appears in the overall population of NFTs, and that's typically what drives the supply and demand, i.e. the price of the NFT. So the point is that you could go down the route of defining these traits and then let an algorithm generate a larger number of unique images.
Yeah.
And wasn't there some talk this week even about the latest algorithm that produces artwork? I'm forgetting the name of it, but it was some AI-based algorithm.
Was it
DALL-E?
DALL-E? Yeah.
That's right.
The girl that was dancing, and then
yeah. So yeah, but I think that would be again the innovative thing that perhaps Roy codes in, that's generative art. So it's perhaps derived from some base symbols, but depending on the person's attributes, they do get their own expression. It makes it then harder to identify that person just based on the visual image. But thinking out loud, that could be a form of privacy preservation, because we only reveal the attributes when we need a vote, or when somebody queries the membership token data registry, then they can sort of select or be put in touch with relevant members of LawFi DAO that they wish to have represented, or those sectors represented in their DAO votes. But the visual image actually itself could be privacy preserving.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Greg, is there anyone that doing that that we could connect with?
I mean, there's obviously Arturo is talking about someone that he knows, that might be an option. Like, you could explore different options. I like the thought of, like, I don't know who that person is, but
yeah,
given that this is starting in a very sort of Australian ecosystem way, Joni, like I think about some of the artists like sort of Giant Swan, he's Melbourne based, that have some global notoriety, but are still very firmly feet on the ground in terms of like being, a local here. There's sort of, there's a few people that come to mind, but Giant Swan also does VR art too. So that might be getting a little bit too far off where we want to go here. But I'm trying to think of the girl's name. I met her at Consensus. It's going to come to me in a second. I think it's Alicia. Have you met Alicia before?
No, but so Arturo, your contact, are they willing to take on more work, or even have an initial discussion of what it could look
absolutely.
like?
Absolutely. The person that we work with that's in our team is Simo. Last name eludes me. He's actually a lecturer of architecture here at, I think it's UNSW, and he's worked at Fendi and a few other brands. So the way that I see him is apart from him being an artist, he's also a really good curator that understands which art works where. So he's able to source the right person, if it's necessary. But he's super friendly and part of the Web3 community, so he'd love to have a chat with you.
I think I met him briefly in April. He's one of the founders of NFT Sydney.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, I met him briefly. I know that we follow each other on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's connect, and then maybe he can even present if he feels comfortable in the next membership token subcommittee meeting, or even on the community call, just to distill some general concepts. And so, Arturo, I know before we close this session, you had some ideas about ZK proofs. Conscious that the white paper has only landed today, but had you had a chance to think about how we could be using ZK proofs with this proposed structure? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
we can defer
that's
to
fine.
next week.
Look, I think that your initial ideas are brilliant. Like the concept of being able to look. Let's put it this way: there are many unintended consequences potentially with having features within the NFTs that describe effectively skill sets or categories of individuals, potentially even if they're more so difficult if they're immutable. So we might have to think about mutability of these features, or so-called evolutionary NFTs. But I strongly believe that it is very possible to have those features, especially if you see the NFTs as, let's call it, fungible within cohorts. That's kind of one of the principles for Tornado Cash to work. That you need to be able to obfuscate to a certain extent identity by having multiple individuals that are equal through these different cohorts, and then you are not able to mathematically prove who's the one that actually voted, or who was the one that actually had that executed the action. All you know is that the person that executed the action was one of the members of this cohort.
And what you raise actually is very contentious, because the way in which a vote unfolds, or the way in which any one person votes, could be harmful to them. And in LawFi DAO, we might not be dealing with very, very serious issues initially, but maybe we will. But again, that sensitivity around the public nature of my vote is something we need to really discuss.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the distinction that I'm finding here is that there's an element of vote across the entire population, and then perhaps the ability to create cohorts around the votes, which is where the features within the NFTs could perhaps create a discriminator effectively between the different members of the community, and therefore you could kind of have different types of votes and engagements through that methodology.
Yeah, and this might feed through in the community building subco, but I feel it's between the both of your areas of expertise too, how we incentivize the community building in our membership token. And I know you speak a lot about, well, both of you speak a lot about this, and what actually brings a community together and keeps them together. So there's got to be more to it in the social construct of how it's used and how it's valued in society. But maybe we can put that on the agenda for next week.
I almost think about it to a degree with, it's probably like a bad analogy or example to use, but when you say go to LinkedIn and people are like recommending certain people for like certain skills that they have, and they're sort of like upvoting and stuff like that, and sort of in a way I sort of see maybe this playing out from that sort of perspective.
You're adding the reputation angle into the mix, which makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's very short and sharp session today. We've got a lot to consider in the proposed white paper, and look forward to going the full hour next week. But thank you both for making the time.
Awesome.
Pleasure.
Okay, see you guys. Bye.